30 verses were written by Raman Maharshi. Raman Maharshi was a sage. Since you haven't heard his name, I'll give you a brief synopsis on Raman Maharshi. Durga, have you heard the name of Raman Maharshi? Of course. You have. Okay, good.
Was he a guru of this?
No.
No, because he had his pictures everywhere. No.
He was a
guru didn't study with Ramana Maharshi, right?
This particular guru was of respected Raman Maharshi quite a bit.
But
He wasn't connected with him, but he respected him. That's why the translation you have in front of him was done by this guru of Raman Maharshi's teachings.
Okay.
Many gurus went to Raman Maharshi for clarification. Raman Maharshi was a sage of the highest order. That's why he was respected by most everybody. He was way beyond the class of human beings. I don't want to paraphrase it like, for me, it's easier to paraphrase that he was not a human being. But in the global context, how can somebody not be a human being? But being an Indian, coming from that philosophy, it's very easy for me to say, yeah, he was an avatar. He was a manifestation of the Lord in a human form in front of us to dispel our doubts and live amongst us as if he was a fellow human being like us. But he was way beyond that. And his entire life was an epitome of the example he set as to how you could be totally non-detached from this world. And that's the ultimate way of living. Because when he was 16, he had an experience of death. And he was a 10th grade student in a small town called Madurai in southern part of India, where he had migrated after his father had died. So him and his older brother, they used to live in their uncle's house. And one day, and he was a very ordinary kid, like any other kid, playing around, pranking around, not very good at studies, not bad, but not good, better than Bandhu. Bandhu was even worse. and only one unusual trait he had was when he would sleep, you couldn't wake him up. Because our life is not just this life and this life. It's not about reincarnation. We don't have to believe in it. It's just a reality that what Durga is, or Tina is, or Vaishnavi is, or Bandhu is, or Jasmine is not just from this birth. Whether you're a Muslim not believing in rebirth, or you are just an atheist who says, oh, there's no God, doesn't matter. Our nature is already formed. Because by cascade of experiences from previous births, I have been framed into a frame of mind that makes me different from my brothers and sisters. I am a part of a family where there are many other family members, including my parents, grandparents, kith and kin, and yet I'm different from everybody else. My idiosyncrasies are different, my tastes are different, my likes and dislikes are slightly different. Even if they are similar to my twin, they're yet different, isn't it? Where does that come from? That difference comes from my experiences of having been born in the past, which culminates into my nature in this life. So when you say Bandhu, I know Bandhu very well. I've known Bandhu for 100 years, and this is what he is like. You're defining Bandhu because of your own perception of Bandhu, which is slightly different from Durga's perception of Bandhu. So what I'm trying to create is that there are similarities in our thinking, and yet we are different.
Sorry, did you say there's no reincarnation because there's no birth or no death?
Well, no, I said whether one believes in reincarnation or not, we are all born before. Right. And yet, that's what you touched upon is another way of thinking. There's no birth, there's no death. Because we are part of the same cosmic energy from which we have fragmented away to become an entity. And therefore, there was no birth, there's no death. We are just the same. There's no difference in the Advaitic Vedantic definition or in the perception of that ultimate reality that we are talking about as the only reality. There's no difference between the tree and the human life. The same energy, the same cosmic energy that we all think is mystical is providing life to that plant, to that tree, to that bird, to that deer, to that bear, to that groundhog, as it is giving an entity to Bandhu. No difference. The other day, somebody asked me in this class, we were talking about understanding that the world is unreal in context of this. And somebody asked me here, can you give us one good example of something which is real and yet I don't grasp it? And I said, sure, I can attempt to. I said, are you alive right now? The person said, yes. He was sitting here. He said, yes, I'm alive. I said, how are you alive? He said, I'm alive. I said, so who is it that is saying I'm alive? And what is that entity that is making you alive? So obviously the mind goes to, because I eat well, I do, that's what he said. I do hatha yoga, I eat well, I look after. I said, and yet you don't have control over your body or your disease or your illness. If you were to get a bad cold, you'll get bad cold, or COVID, or HIV, or Ebola. You could have got it, right? So you still have an entity within you which is governing your life. Think about it. You and I are alive because we think I'm alive because of this and that. But actually, it is the reality that one wants to embrace is the breath in this body, which makes me the jiva, which makes me this individual self. The same breath is in the tree. The same breath is in the deer that just walked past here. None of us have control over it. I'm considered born when the breath begins to flow through this body. Until the breath is flowing, I'm not having an entity. And I will not have an entity the moment the breath leaves me, I'll drop dead. And people say, oh, Bandhu just died. And Bandhu will not be able to say anything is gone because the breath is gone. The breath is the reality, the cosmic energy that we live with every moment, and we egotistically ignore it. We say, oh, my body, I know how I live. I'm very healthy. But I forget that the breath in my body is way beyond my control. That's the reality we are talking about. So coming back to these 30 verses, we are...
Would he argue, if you're saying the breath in my body is beyond my control, would this person argue, well, I take care better of my body than somebody who overeats and doesn't exercise, so my breath will stay longer?
Okay.
And then, so in a way, he's trying to control his breath and his life.
But it's not an insurance, it's not an insurance.
No, I'm saying no,
but
I'm saying just
Yes.
for devil's advocate, yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's a very good point. So if I'm looking after my body and doing everything right, will I be able to extend the duration of my breath?
Right, that's what.
Will I live longer than someone else? So will I be able to extend my breath if I'm taking care of it? The answer in physical, mental, egotistical way is yes. Yes, I'm going to live to be 100. But the ultimate answer is not a fraction, not even a billionth of a fraction of a moment is going to be added to this life or taken away from this life. I'm going to die. This breath is going to stop when it's destined to stop. It is not going to change. Exactly as our lives are being governed by the destiny. This is the other example of reality in my life, which I easily forget. Let's say you were a good high school kid and a good college student, and then you did PhD in your subject, and you are world-renowned because not only were you a PhD in your subject, like many of us were.
Gift to the world.
Right, but your gift to the world, you published this book and that book, and you're invited everywhere, and you speak, and everybody says, Durga is the best. And yet, I'm just creating a hypothetical example. I don't even know her. And yet Durga has no control over the day. She is tarnished by some kind of a thing that somebody says, oh, it's all plagiarism. All these books she has published is copy of that, and she has stolen things, and she is PhD, but her knowledge is not authentic. And overnight, the tabloids and the newspapers and everybody condemns Durga, and the reputation goes out of the window. Did Durga do anything wrong? No, Durga was doing the right thing. And for the last 20 years, she was popular, and suddenly she's unpopular. that was destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just as when you were studying or whatever you were doing, you had a different plan. You thought you would do something different than what you are actually doing now. Less than 1% of us actually are following exactly what we thought we would be following. Not even 1%, maybe 0.001%. We all thought of something different than what we actually are. And yet we don't respect that change as being governed by some entity, some energy which is beyond me. Same energy which puts breath in my body is that energy which governs the functioning of this body.
So I like to think of it the day I have to live.
Yeah.
So, obviously I eat, but I eat healthy and I exercise because the day I have to live, I want to feel good in this day. And that's kind of how I look at it rather than thinking. I'm kind of talking to myself rather.
Please do. That's good. That's the best.
Right? So that the day I have to live in this day, I'm going to feel more awakened from spiritual teachings, more healthy or feel good because of this day. Tomorrow, I could pass, but that's it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
We have no control over it. That's why these teachings teach us to be detached. We have to practice detachment because I'm attached to everything.
Detached or non-attached?
No, if you want to be detached from it.
I don't know if it's 2%.
Sorry?
I don't know, is detached or non-attached?
No.
I don't know, it might be different.
Okay, it's a play of words. You have to be non-attached.
The idea is the same.
Asango.
Detached, no, I just
Unattached.
When you detach, pulling away, and when you're,
unattached,
withdrawing or, closing up, when you're non-attached, it's not.
Yep. It's a play of words, but unattached is the real word.
Okay, unattached.
Unattached. I should be unattached to my attachments. You are very young, you may have a child, we could be very attached to our children, but we should be unattached from our relationship of that attachment. That is an Advaitic philosophy. Because I should be unattached from things because my attachment is going to create a layer of my vasana. What is vasana? Vasana is my latent tendencies from previous births. Whatever my habits are my vasanas. My thinking is my vasana. I like certain things, I don't like certain things. My sensuality, my sexuality, my personal lust for money, lust for reputation, lust for sex, lust for everything good. I have so many shades of my likes and dislikes. I like water, but I don't like it a plastic cup. If it were to be plastic, I wish it was a little thicker so that it would not be emanating so much of such and such chemical, right? That's exactly how the mind works. I like it, but I don't like a small laptop. I wish I had a 27-inch screen. All these things are vasanas coming from previous habits, and these determine my relationships. So if I'm too attached to my child, or I'm too attached to my parents, or I'm too attached to one of my siblings, and most of them are previous debts. Most of these relationships are your debts. Your children are your biggest debtors. They are creditors. You are paying off the debt.
Can you explain that more a little?
Yeah, we'll come to that in a little bit. I don't want to open up a can of worms. There's so many things here that we can talk about. But anyway, when you're too attached, let's stay with the basics. When you're too attached, you're creating yet another layer of a mental like or dislike that will continue forward. So I should be unattached from everything, my money, my reputation, my likes, dislikes, my relationships, my relatives, my friends, my reputation, my degrees, my religion, my country, my color of my skin, color of this and that, and everything is my attachment. Unless I really repose on it, reposing meaning I deeply think about it to stay with it, it doesn't become a clear thought. And I should be absolutely clear that I have limitations of everything around me is my own selfish world. And I'm constantly feeding into that selfish world, and I should be unattached and make myself selfless. by seeing everybody as myself. And that doesn't come easily unless, here is the point to ponder over, unless I begin to look at my own nature. That's the meditative practice. Why Patanjali, but you all have done some kind of hatha yoga and pranayama and all that, I know that. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the entire exegete of knowledge of meditation. What does it talk about? Controlling the mind to be thoughtless. Meditation is nothing else. It's not a posture of sitting with your spine absolutely erect and sitting like Chin Mudra, whatever. All that ritualistic practice is not necessary. What's necessary is only that I should not be thinking of too many things. I should be funneling down my thinking into one single narrow thought. And that thought should be, I'm not the real entity. The real entity governs me as an entity, and I should merge with it. An ocean has a wave. A wave has many, many other shades and shapes of a wave. When you see a wave in a rivulet or in a pond or in a lake or in a river or in an ocean. And every wave has many, many, many droplets of water. But all those are basically ocean. Similarly, we are all particles, just like a leaf that fell off that tree just now was part of that tree. We are also just same way, but we have an egotistical intellect that other species don't have. This morning, the satsang, a gentleman asked, so the animals don't have ego? Obviously not, because they don't have an intellect. They don't have mind. How do we know that? They don't plan for their lunch. They're not worried about what are they going to eat at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, or where would they get their water from, or where would they sleep tonight. They sleep under the sun that the cosmic energy has provided them. They drink water from the sources that they instinctively go to and drink water from, and till date it is being provided to them. Millions of years, all the species are existing. When they're going extinct, right? When are they going extinct? When we are killing them. We are the most pervasive, most dangerous species are human beings. And yet we think we are the best. That's the ego. So my ego is so big that I think I'm better than any other species. Whereas in the cosmic definition, I'm one of the worst. That's why I need to get beyond this and withdraw. So what we are discussing is drop your definitions, drop your likes and dislikes, drop your attachments, and you will see what a difference it will bring in your life. That's what these teachings are about. That's Advaita Vedanta. That's the pure Advaita Vedanta. And he was the epitome, living epitome, Ramana Maharshi, amongst us, who not only talked about it, not only wrote about it, he displayed it by living it.